This is a story about the crow. Once there was a crow who lived in a tree by a waterhole. And Crow was sad because every morning she woke up to see another crow looking back at her. She looks like a crow who could save the world. I wish that I could be like her, Crow thought. And this continued until one day, Crow flew away seeking her destiny. She'd not flown far when the air grew hot, and she could hear the sound of flames flickering down below. So she flew down to take a closer look. "Crow, crow, crow, help!" cried Little Gum. "I am but a small tree, but one day I shall grow to be a big tree where crows can build their nests. Can you please save me, or this fire will surely burn me up?" But Crow was afraid of fire. But remembering how she loved her tree by the waterhole, Crow flew down and swooped and pulled Little Gum out of the earth and carried him until finally they reached a river surrounded by many trees. Gently she placed Little Gum upon the earth. "Thank you, Crow," called Little Gum, happily digging his roots into the soil. But Crow was sad, for in the river looking back at her was another crow. "She looks like a crow who is very brave. I wish that I could be like her," thought Crow, and sadly Crow flew on. Sadly Crow flew on. Well, after flying for some time, Crow could hear someone calling from down below. "Crow, help! Help!" So she flew down to take a closer look, and she could see a young yet strong-looking goanna, a strong-looking cougar clinging to the sides of a rock pool. "Crow, help! I came to get a drink, but I fell in. Help!" Well, Crow could see that the sides of the rock pool were not very steep, so she called out to Cougar. She called out to Goanna. "Goanna, I can see that you're such a strong goanna, and you can get out by yourself." Well, Crow sounded so sure of this that Goanna believed her, and with one giant heave he pulled himself out of the rock pool. "Thank you, Crow," called Goanna, happily scurrying away. But Crow was sad, for in the rock pool looking back at her was another crow. "She looks like a crow who has great faith. I wish that I could be like her," said Crow. And sadly Crow flew on. Sadly Crow flew on. Well, the sky grew dark and clouds began to form, and lightning struck and thunder roared, and it began to rain and rain and rain. So Crow flew down to take shelter beneath a giant paperbark tree that was standing all alone. "Oh, Crow," said Paperbark Tree, "you were my first visitor in such a long time. A fire came and burnt all my branches, and all the animals have forgotten about me. Can you please sing to remind them I'm here?" But Crow didn't like to sing because all the other birds made fun of her harsh voice. But she felt sorry for Paperbark Tree. So when the sky cleared and the sun began to shine, she began to sing. "Ah, ah, come see Paperbark Tree standing all alone. Ah, ah, come see Paperbark Tree standing beautiful and green. Ah, ah, come see Paperbark Tree." Well, Crow's voice travelled far, and all the animals began to follow the sound. Ants began to march, lizards crawled, and birds flew, and all the animals returned to Paperbark Tree. "Thank you, Crow," said Paperbark Tree, happily shivering her branches. But Crow was sad, because in a puddle left by the rain, she could see another crow looking back at her. "She looks like a crow who is very kind. I wish that I could be like her." And this time Crow was so sad that she began to cry. Well, Kookaburra Gugugaga flew out of the tree and landed down beside her. "Crow, why are you crying? All the animals have returned to Paperbark Tree, and the sun is shining. What is there to cry about?" So Crow told Gugugaga, told Kookaburra, of how she'd left her home seeking her destiny. And all along the way, she kept seeing crows more amazing and wonderful than the last, and she didn't know how she could be as good as any of them. Well, Kookaburra began to laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. "Silly Crow," said Gugugaga. "It's you, Crow in the rock pool, and it was you, Crow in the river, and look, it's you, Crow in the puddle." Well, Crow stared at Kookaburra, and then she stared at Crow in the puddle. And when she touched her beak to the puddle and saw that Crow in the puddle rippled and disappeared, she realized that she had indeed been looking at her own reflection the whole time. Happy at last, Crow flew back to her tree by the waterhole. And every day she saw another crow looking back at her. She saw a crow who was brave. She saw a crow who had faith. She saw a crow who was kind. And she saw a crow who was wise, and she knew that this crow was her. And from that day forth, when animals would visit her by the waterhole, she would tell them that their destiny lay within them, and all they had to do was learn how to see it.